In our dreams, there is a land. A land that takes us back to the origins of the earth. A young land in terms of human discovery and settlement. This is a land of ongoing change, as nature wields in one hand a sword, and in the other an artist's brush. It is a vast land, spreading out in a luxurious sweep of rainforest, tundra, and ice. The land beckons dreamers and the adventuresome. Its immensity overflows with wildness and with silence. In our dreams, we have always known that there would be such a place, and someday we would see it. This is the place. It is called Alaska. Comprising a landmass 1/5 the size of the lower 48 states, Alaska is often appreciated for its sheer size. For example, if placed atop the United States, Alaska would stretch from New York City to Los Angeles. Alaska is so large that Alaskans find it helpful to think of their state as a collection of 6 unique regions. Each region has its own geography, wildlife, and lifestyles. The Arctic, the Northwest, the Interior, the Southwest, the South Central, and the emerald jewel in Alaska's crown, the Southeast. Southeast is where many visitors get their first glimpse of Alaska on a cruise through the Inside Passage. Here, mountains give the impression of having recently risen from roots deep in the sea. They give birth to waterfalls that descend thousands of feet to sea level. Nearby, veils of mist enshroud scores of tiny islands. Porpoises seem to lead the way as ships maneuver carefully through the narrow but well-charted passage, providing an inspiring and quiet ride over silver waters. Lush, rain-fed forests slide by, home to the raven, eagle, and other creatures of native legend. This is indeed a land of mystery. The first stop on the northward journey is Ketchikan, a distinction that has caused it to be called Alaska's first city. This small town lives under a blanket of misty rain for most of the year. Built at the foot of towering mountains, much of Ketchikan, by necessity, hangs over the water on pilings. A stroll along the harbor reveals an important source of the Southeast Alaskans' livelihood: fishing. Commercial salmon fishing is serious competitive business to more than 7,000 boats in the Southeast fleet. Many of the communities of Southeast have fish processing plants. This one in Ketchikan processes salmon, canning the delicate meat for the world market. Commercial fishermen aren't the only fishermen in Southeast Alaska. Clear streams teeming with spawning salmon attract well-equipped anglers. There is also the four-legged fishermen. These bears have recently come out of their winter hibernation. They've lost weight and are very hungry. Some patiently wait for the biggest fish to swim by. Others simply chase down anything that swims, which can be more than a mouthful. The wet, mild climate of Southeast Alaska gives rise to thick forests, providing the raw material for the region's timber industry. The harvest of old-growth timber plays a vital role in the economy of the region, and along with the fish, is an important export to Asian nations. Before the lumberjack, another race of men and women felled the giant Sitka spruce and the aromatic cedars of the rainforest. These totem poles, created by the Tlingit and Haida Indians, are famous around the world for their fine carving and the powerful images of animals and spirits ascending into the sky. Since the Indians had no written language, the totem tells the stories and legends of these ancient races. There's probably no more historic town in Alaska than Sitka. Alaska's oldest non-native settlement, Sitka was once the capital of Russian America. More than 200 years ago, Russian fur traders settled here, making it, at the time, the largest city on North America's west coast. Today, a Russian cannon still stands on the site of the original Castle Hill fortress overlooking Sitka Sound. The centerpiece of the town is St. Michael's Cathedral, built by the Russians in 1848. Although it burned in 1966, the townspeople saved nearly all its priceless icons and paintings and rebuilt the structure in exact detail from original drawings. This pride in Sitka's Russian heritage is celebrated each summer by the New Archangel Russian dancers. The state capital of Alaska is located at Juneau, a city of pleasing contrasts. Juneau is a major stop on ferry and cruise ship schedules, and with good reason. In this city of 25,000, residents live with towering mountains at their backs and the waters of Gastineau Channel at their feet. The colonial-style governor's mansion looks like it was flown in yesterday from New England. Juneau residents have taken advantage of every inch of real estate. Some find their exercise every day, just walking home. A short distance from the city center is Mendenhall Glacier, a popular attraction for thousands of visitors every year. In true drive-in style, a view of the 12-mile-long glacier can be enjoyed without ever leaving your car. However, an airborne sightseeing trip brings breathtaking close-up views of crevasses and blue glacial ice. The Great Juneau Ice Field covers more than 1,000 square miles and has produced more than 30 glaciers. At the top of the Alaska Panhandle, near the Canadian border, is the unique town of Skagway. Once the gateway to the Klondike goldfields, Skagway is steeped in rough and tumble history. This is the North's own version of the Old West, a town that once was home to the kind of gold-crazed men writer Jack London made famous, or infamous. Through music and stage plays, visitors step back in time and visit Skagway's Soapy Smith, who, until he met an untimely end, was more than willing to empty the pockets of many an aspiring miner. From its boardwalks, to its false-fronted buildings, to its unusual transportation options, Skagway may be Alaska's most unusual community. No trip to Southeast Alaska would be complete without a visit to Glacier Bay National Monument. Millions of tons of ice flow for miles over land to end here in the sea. As the glaciers continue their decay, sometimes at a rate of hundreds of feet a year, huge sections of glacial cliff break away, crashing into the water below. Seals find these icebergs convenient resting places. In retreat since the last ice age, the glaciers have left a bay rich in marine life. Glacier Bay is renowned for its concentration of humpback whales and whale watchers. Because the waters of Glacier Bay are rich in the tiny shrimp-like animals that are a favorite of the humpback, many of them come here to feed from June to August. The South Central region is the most settled area of Alaska. 2/3 of all Alaskans find the temperate climate of South Central, its readily available recreational opportunities, and ever-present wildlife just the sort of attractions to make them want to call this home. In Anchorage, nearly 250,000 people devote themselves to commerce and industry beneath the steady gaze of the Chugach Mountains. In 1915, Anchorage was a tent city whose purpose was to get the Alaska Railroad built. But the pioneers found the wide bowl nestled between mountains and Cook Inlet an ideal place to settle down. As an air crossroads for planes flying to Europe, the Pacific, the Orient, and almost everywhere else, Anchorage is eager to share with the visitor her scenery and expertise in comfortable northern living. "30 miles north of Anchorage is Alaska's primary agricultural region, the Matanuska Valley. Picturesque farms grow green beneath the mountains. Rich soil and nearly round-the-clock sunlight during the summer combine to produce vegetables of remarkable size. In August, Alaskans celebrate the harvest with a state fair. An excellent opportunity to get close to a 60-pound cabbage and a 200-pound pig. "60 miles south of Anchorage is the most visited attraction in Alaska, Portage Glacier. The glacier's steady calving produces icebergs that float up to the visitor center on the edge of Portage Lake. A walk onto the glacier itself may produce a sighting of the elusive ice worm. Hunting ice worms doesn't require a license, just a toothpick and a taste for the unusual.
I'll give you all a vial here and a toothpick, and the vial has alcohol in it to preserve them. Generally, I pick them up with toothpicks because if I don't, I smush them. So I'll just give you all these. They don't really believe us, and I think this is kind of a snipe hunt, and it's a lot to make them come out here and hike this mile to get here to look for them, but they come here to just to see if they really do exist.
A favorite recreation and sightseeing area for the residents of South Central Alaska is the 200-mile-long Kenai Peninsula. Besides tall mountains and carpets of forests, the peninsula lakes and rivers are a magnet for the fishermen and boaters who come here every year. During spring and summer, the small communities of the peninsula swell to many times their normal size as fishermen and boaters descend on rivers, bays, and streams. The most famous of the peninsula rivers is the Kenai. This glacier-fed river yields some of the largest salmon in the world, the Kenai King. The enthusiasm of an angler who has battled a king to the boat is difficult to restrain, and sometimes an armload of a king is more difficult to handle out of the water than in it. The record king taken in the river weighed just under 100 pounds. At the tip of the Kenai Peninsula is gorgeous Kachemak Bay and the city of Homer. Fireweed grows thick on hillsides overlooking the bay, providing a view of the 5-mile-long Homer Spit. This unusual landform provides the base for a large fishing fleet and recreational boating. The bay is a rich source of seafood. Of particular interest to sports fishermen are halibut, A successful charter in search of these large bottom fish can bring many smiles and literally a ton of fish. To the southwest lie some of the most mysterious and seldom visited areas of Alaska that have been home to Aleut Indians for perhaps 30,000 years. Pribilof Islands are also home to a large number of fur seals who live in these marine-rich waters. The Pribilofs are a favorite of bird watchers. The jagged cliffsides form rookeries for many species of birds, including murres and the colorful horned puffin. South of the Pribilofs, at the tip of the Alaska Peninsula, is the Aleutian Chain, a series of windswept volcanic islands extending 1,000 miles into the Pacific Ocean toward Asia. The islands are virtually treeless, the vegetation consisting mainly of grass and exotic flowers. Vast mountains, long winding rivers, and great expanses of tundra make up the interior of Alaska. The interior is a land of contrasts. In the summer, long daylight hours send the mercury into the 90s. In the winter, though, temperatures routinely plunge into the 30 or 40 below zero range. The wide open spaces and the rich resources of the interior have long attracted fortune seekers. Around the turn of the century, names like Fairbanks, the Yukon, Circle City became household words. This part of Alaska saw a new gold stampede that occurred at about the time of the strikes in the Klondike to the south. Today, the only evidence of the old-timers is the rusting hulks of discarded dredges. But new discoveries of gold, coal, and copper are reinvigorating hard rock mining in this area. At the center of the economic activity in the interior is Fairbanks. Fairbanks has seen many booms and busts. Most recently, the city boomed with the discovery of oil on Alaska's North Slope and the construction of the Trans-Alaska Pipeline. The 750-mile pipeline spans the state from Prudhoe Bay to Valdez. The long silver line passes over some of the most scenic and challenging terrain in the world. Engineered to withstand earthquake, and much of it built above ground to avoid melting, then sinking in the permafrost soil, the pipeline was built at a cost of $9 billion. The oil it transports has contributed greatly to the development of Fairbanks and all of Alaska. The state's oldest university campus, the University of Alaska, is located just outside Fairbanks. The university's program emphasis on high-latitude problems has earned it worldwide notice. University research into the nature of the aurora borealis, or northern lights, has yielded the world's finest visuals of this phenomenon. These pictures were taken using one of the world's most sensitive video cameras. The resulting image is as close as man has come to capturing the elusive beauty of the aurora on a winter's night. The Alaska Railroad provides a vital link between the interior and coastal Alaska. The most popular destination for the train lies almost midway between Fairbanks and Anchorage, Denali National Park. In Denali Park, visitors find 6 million acres of wilderness devoted to an array of wildlife. The park is presided over by North America's tallest mountain, magnificent Mount McKinley. Within the park, buses offer a chance to take an Alaskan-style safari along a winding 80-mile dirt road. A privileged view is obtained of some of Alaska's most famous species. In Denali, the animals have priority. Unafraid of man, they frequently stop on or near the road, giving bus passengers an opportunity for a picture-perfect scene. Alaska's big four game animals are abundant and easily seen within Denali. The lumbering grizzly, often accompanied by cubs. Doll sheep with their impressive display of sure-footedness. The Arctic's greatest nomad, the caribou, and the moose. Alaskans on the go frequently take to the air. This is especially true of those making trips to and from the sparsely settled areas of the state known as the bush. Today, many formerly isolated villages and cities are connected with jet service. To go beyond them, travelers board bush planes. In the small villages of Alaska, one finds the traditional people of Alaska, Indian, Aleut, and Eskimo, people who through thousands of years have maintained a close and respectful relationship with the land. Season to season, the rhythm of life in the interior is much the same. On the Yukon River and its many tributaries, the arrival of salmon brings about an annual ritual. When the salmon come up the river to spawn, native Alaskans gather at traditional fish camps to catch and prepare a winter supply of food, and some to sell for cash. The salmon used for personal consumption is dried on outdoor racks. The salmon that will be sold are cut into strips and draped over racks in a smokehouse and carefully smoked with native alder. The pace of life in Alaska slows as summer gives way to winter. By February, the midway point in winter, Alaskans break the monotony with a variety of festivals. Dog mushers from around the state and the nation gather in Anchorage for an annual fur rendezvous. A 10-day carnival of traditional northern winter fun. While the men and women's World Championship sled dog race winners are being decided, 140 other events are ongoing, all designed to chase cabin fever and the midwinter blues. A few weeks following Fur Rendezvous, mushers again meet in Anchorage for the start of the world-famous Iditarod sled dog race. More than a score of the world's best mushers test themselves and their dogs against one another during this race to historic Nome, more than 1,000 miles away. The best mushers will spend nearly 2 weeks on the trail with little sleep in a test of endurance that is unequaled in any other sporting event. In western Alaska, 500 miles west of Anchorage, lies the Bering Sea. The inhabitants of the western coast of Alaska have an important relationship with this great and strategic body of water. The sea is, and always has been, central to the lives of Eskimos. One of the most important marine mammals to the western Eskimo is the walrus. The walrus is most at home in the water, where despite weighing up to 3,000 pounds, they move with the grace of a dancer. These wrinkled creatures congregate on island rookeries and ice floes offshore. Though comical to watch, the walrus has practical value to natives who use the tough, thick hide for fashioning skin boats. The meat and blubber is used for food. The ivory is raw material for beautifully carved and polished artifacts. The northwest of Alaska is a land of mountains and rolling hills of Arctic tundra. For the coastal towns and villages, life depends upon what can be wrested from land and sea. Surprisingly, Alaska's most successful agricultural enterprise is found in this stark landscape: reindeer herding. And that means an annual Western-style roundup and antler harvest. The Arctic, land of long, dark winters, and in summer, days that are indistinguishable from night. For most of the year, a blanket of snow, the sound of wind howling across the ice. Then a short summer. Winter pulls back its icy fingers. The ice pack fractures. The tundra becomes dotted with thousands of tiny lakes. The sun returns from below the horizon and bathes the Arctic slope in a golden and orange light around the clock. We're in the land of the midnight sun. This is the home of the Inupiat Eskimo, the great whale hunters. During the Arctic spring, when the sun ceases to set, bowhead whales pass through narrow leads of ice near the shore. whaling captain and his crew wait, sometimes for days, sometimes for weeks, until a whale is sighted. A skin boat is launched and the chase begins. Capturing a bowhead whale is no small feat. Often the hunt is unsuccessful. When the hunters return with a whale, though, the entire village turns out to help bring the whale ashore. The bowhead is important to the Inupiat, not only for food, but as a centerpiece of their culture. The successful whaling captain is honored in his village. He divides his catch among members of his community in time-honored tradition. The celebration includes a blanket toss, beating of the walrus skin drums, and traditional dances and singing. The Eskimos are no longer the only ones to take on the challenge of survival in the Arctic. In 1968, oil companies discovered North America's largest oil field at Prudhoe Bay. Here on the North Slope, man perches near the top of the world, his largest structures dwarfed by the horizonless landscape. Less than 20 years ago, this area was tundra and ice. Today, the vast apparatus of the oil industry stands linked to a 750-mile-long pipeline carrying 20% of the nation's oil supply. In the last 50 years, more change has come to Alaska than in all the centuries before. The rise of cities, the development of state government, the inexorable pulling of native cultures into non-traditional ways of living, the creation of an extensive communication and transportation network where nothing of the kind existed before. There has also been the sudden impact of the newfound wealth of oil, the increase of tourism, and development of new export markets to the nations of the Pacific Rim. Though the changes are significant and irreversible, the land and its mysteries remain. Alaska. It remains a raw land, still in the process of self-discovery. Alaskans, as much as anyone, appreciate the treasures in their own backyard. They, and indeed all Americans, are committed to maintaining one of the last great wildernesses left on Earth. More than any other of the 50 states, Alaska lands have been dedicated to parks and wildlife preserves so that all people can continue to enjoy the natural wonder that is uniquely Alaska.
A land of staggering immensity, utter solitude, and powerful, sometimes violent change. This is a land of extremes, a land where life, wild and free, clings to mountain rampart and parades across vast stretches of trackless tundra. Symbol of freedom. A living icon of independence and resolve. The bald eagle reigns over this wild dominion with magnificence. Autumn is a brief postscript to summer in the far north. Eagles, numbering in the thousands, congregate here in southeast Alaska. Some will actually fly north to spend the winter. The bald eagle, a fierce predator, a wily scavenger, a vigilant guardian of wild Alaska. Dining among thousands of neighbors in perpetual motion, caribou browse upon the tundra's delicate forage. Moving constantly into the wind to detect predators, they often travel great distances between winter and summer ranges to feed, calve, and breed. A sea of life ever moving across the horizon in the ebb and flow of seasons. Alaska's coastal and island rookeries are tapestries of life, woven with astonishing diversity, color, and interdependence. cliffs and outcroppings teem with nesting shorebirds and seabirds. Each strata, like the floors of a high-rise apartment, are occupied by a very different species. Like some bizarre wild opera, the plaintive high notes of wheeling kittiwakes trill above the deep bass of bull sea lions, with 1,000 voices clamoring in between. The music of life, a tribute to the bounty of the sea. Most playful inhabitant is also one of its most resourceful. The sea otter is one of only a few animals on Earth who utilize tools, often cracking open crabs, clams, and other shellfish by pounding them with a rock. Crucial to survival. Vanity has nothing to do with its frequent preening, and much of the otter's acrobatic cavorting is part of a meticulous regime of cleanliness. Thousands of miles. An ocean sojourn fraught with danger and voracious predators. Stream where it began years before, the wild Alaskan salmon gathers itself for the climax to one of nature's longest journeys. They are the world's largest, most imposing carnivores. Alaska's giant coastal brown bears are drawn to salmon-choked rivers every summer. Extraordinarily maternal, brown bear sows are intensely protective of their cubs. The power and strength of these shy, playful giants is legendary. A mature brown bear can lift and carry an 800-pound moose. With surprising dexterity, they snatch their feisty prey and gorge on the protein-rich abundance. From the ice floes of the Arctic to the rainforest of Southeast, bears express and reflect the diverse attributes of their home range, each a powerful exclamation of wild Alaska. Sure-footed and nimble, Gull sheep are the only white wild sheep in the world. Watchful as they graze, they wage a reclusive battle to survive on windswept mountainsides and steep alpine meadows of Alaska's high country. Wild Alaska. The untamed pageant of life. Ancient rhythms. The poetry of nature. A song never ending. This quiet prayer, whispered in primal reverence for nature's harmony. A wellspring of hope, free and natural. This is wild Alaska. May it always be forever wild.
Kolyak. Sabi chade kolyak jom. Kolyak chade.
Welcome to Alaska's capital. You enter Juneau by one of only two means, sea or air. There are no roads which connect Juneau with the rest of the world. Alaska's capital also has the distinction of being the largest city in North or South America. Despite being sparsely populated, it claims 3,108 square miles of land. From the historical district to the state government buildings, you can trace Juneau's growth from mining boomtown to seat of Alaska's state government. The state fish of Alaska is the king salmon. The state bird is the willow ptarmigan. The state mineral is gold. And the state tree is the beautiful Sitka spruce. In 1880, Dick Harris and Joe Juneau staked a claim here in what would be the beginning of the great Alaska gold rush. After an exhaustive search for treasure, some prospectors enjoy the pleasures of an outdoor salmon bake. A trip to Taku Lodge combines the exhilaration of a float plane flight with the sizzling taste of fresh salmon. And no one argues that half the fun of Taku Lodge is getting there. Unforgettable look at nature's power, a journey to Mendenhall Glacier is unmatched. You land on the sparkling ice for a close look at this awesome beauty. Mendenhall, along with Herbert, Taku, and Eagle glaciers, forms the Juneau ice field. The city is protected from this enormous flow of ice by Mount Juneau, Mount Roberts, and the Gastineau Channel. This shelter is responsible for the relatively mild climate enjoyed by the citizens of the capital city.
This is actually caused by erosion. In fact, if you guys were just here about the first week of June, you would not be standing where you are right now. In fact, all of you would be standing about here or up farther. This ice extended out for 6 more feet. These glaciers you see above us are called hanging glaciers. They hang on the side of the mountain. We're also moving down the valley right now to about 2 feet a day. Big rocks will fall into cracks like this. When these cracks close up, anything in it is ground up into a powder. And this looks like sand over here you can see on the top we've been working on. It's actually ground up powders. Just rocks that have been ground up by the action of the glacier.
Some people choose to visit Mendenhall Glacier without going airborne. A visitor center provides information and a lofty observation point. Juneau might have faded into obscurity when the mining concerns played out, were it not for its being named territorial capital of Alaska. Today, both mining and government remain as the cornerstones of Juneau's heritage. Evenings on the Regal Princess are full of fun and excitement. Did you dance till dawn at the stage door? Was Lady Luck your companion at the casino? Were you a pub night participant?
Don't take any pictures! No pictures! Get this lady out of here! Don't want to see that company like that.
perhaps a quiet drink at Bengal was the prelude to the world-class entertainment for which Princess is famous. Although Alaska was the next to the last state to enter the Union, it ranks first in many ways. First, inches. And it surprises most visitors to find that there's a rainforest so close to the Arctic Circle. In Ketchikan, you find water everywhere. One of the city's most means thundering wings of eagles, or Salmon Creek that flows through town. Because Tlingit is not a written language, variations in English translations are rampant. Everything about Ketchikan reinforces the importance of the ocean in daily life here. Blue and gold ferries, part of the Alaska Marine Highway System, are a vital means of transportation. Even the local airplanes have watery landing strips. Ketchikan has the world's largest collection of totems. These fascinating Native American sculptures are preserved and restored at Totem Bight State Park. A bight is a small cove or bay. Totem Bight on the Tongass Narrows was once a Tlingit Indian summer campsite. Just as you might associate rainforests with the tropics, you probably think of fjords as Scandinavian. But Ketchikan has a surprise here too, as experienced in an aerial visit to the fjords. The beauty and splendor of Alaska unfold beneath you from the exciting perspective of a seaplane. Misty Fjord is a national monument. Its 2.2 million acres were set aside for protection in 1978. The deep fjords and sheer cliffs are accessible only by float plane or by boat. If the water shapes the lives of those who live in Ketchikan, it also provides a range of vacation fun for those who visit here. Canoeing can take you gliding through the still waters of an icy lake. Strenuous fun, kayaking is a way to get around town and get some exercise. To enjoy the watery beauty of Ketchikan without having to exert oneself, a cruise along the scenic waterfront is unbeatable. This first city of Alaska is a most appealing waterfront community. The elegant Regal Princess was your floating home away from home. On a ship this size, there are innumerable nooks and crannies to find and enjoy. Here's your chance to remember the comfortable lounges, sweeping atrium, and spacious decks where sun-washed days and starlit nights were the backdrop for fun. Vancouver. This economic hub of British Columbia has in recent years become a magnet for film production, for Asian trade, and of course, for cruise ships. Any visitor to Vancouver is sure to appreciate the scenic beauty that surrounds this exciting city. Gold rush towns, spectacular natural beauty, majestic wildlife, and the charm of the Regal Princess. These are your memories to enjoy until we see you again.
Years ago, the huge ice masses which covered North America began to recede northward. As they withdrew, mountains were carved, rivers formed, and lakes left behind. Today, 10% of Earth's landmass is covered by glacial ice. Antarctica is the largest glacier mass, comprising 4,900,000 square miles. Alaska ranks 7th with 20,000 square miles, and the continental United States is 15th with 200 square miles. Creation of a glacier begins with the delicate form of a snowflake. When snow falls to Earth, flakes join together into grains of ice with bubbles of air trapped inside. As the weight of snow increases, the icy clumps form large solid fields of ice. An increase in pressure from the weight of the ice forces out the trapped air bubbles, turning airy white snow into airless blue ice. An ice field continues to grow, with additional snowfall turning to ice crystals. When it gets to a depth of approximately 60 feet, the ice mass begins to move. A glacier is an ice field in motion. As it moves, it crushes everything in its path, pebbles to boulders. As rocks are carried along, they're ground finer and finer until they're the consistency of flour. This rock flour is carried away by meltwater and turns seawater a gray-brown color. When two glaciers meet and form a larger flow, the rocks carried along their connected sides become a medial moraine, a line of crushed earth down the center of the newly enlarged glacier. Rocks and boulders left at the glacier's edge, or snout, are also called moraines. Worthington Glacier provides an excellent illustration of this rocky debris. Even in the flows which break from the edge of an ice shelf, you'll see evidence of the glacier's power to literally move mountains. There are three types of glaciers: mountain, ice cap, and ice sheet. Mountain glaciers start in snowfields located, appropriately enough, atop mountains. Repeated snowfall and freezing temperatures allow the snow and ice to reach the depth necessary to start the flow of the ice fields. They move downward through valleys until reaching the snow line where they melt during summer months. Mountain glaciers can be miles long and are subject to avalanches. The largest glacier in Alaska is Malaspina Glacier, located between Glacier Bay and Valdez. It is 60 miles long. If the weather is cold enough, the glacier doesn't melt, but instead flows out over level ground. Such a flow is called a Piedmont glacier. Larger than mountain glaciers are ice caps, the most famous example of which is Iceland. These ice fields are so thick they completely bury mountains. Ice sheets are the largest of the three glacial types. Antarctica is an ice sheet and covers more land than the United States, Mexico, and Central America combined. Where a glacier meets the sea, it forms an ice shelf. At Mendenhall Glacier, you can experience being at close range to such a formation. When sections of the shelf break off, the glacier is said to be calving, and the floating sections are icebergs. In Glacier Bay and at Columbia Glacier, it's possible to lower a tender to collect an icy remnant of a nearby glacier. Crewmen must be alert to the danger of large ice flows, as well as to the many tidal waves caused when a glacier calves. Is a slow time for glacial movement, but with warm winds and summer sunshine, icy activity speeds up. Some northern Alaskan glaciers can move as little as 6 inches per year, but others, with the advent of summer heat, race along at up to 100 feet per day. The thicker the glacier, the faster it moves. Increased weight means increased pressure, which in turn means increased temperatures at the bottom of the glacier. As meltwater forms, the glacier slides along on a layer of liquid. A glacier moves quickest in the center, more slowly towards its sides. As the ice moves, it bends and cracks, causing crevices. Some of these are small enough to step over. Others form deadly traps for unsuspecting mountain climbers. Glaciers create magnificent landscapes as they flow over the terrain. From their beginnings on mountaintops, they shape the earth as they make their way toward the sea. Sharp peaks indicate that most of the mountain has been carried away by ice. Right of the screen, a cirque is a hollow formed when a glacier scrapes away the surrounding rocks. Waterfalls cascade where crevices once scarred the mountainside. Smooth, round valley floors show where a glacier flowed out over more level terrain. And another landscape legacy are hanging glaciers. As their name suggests, they hang on the side of a mountain. They're formed when ice retreats from a main glacier, leaving its tributaries stranded on a mountainside. It comes as a surprise to some people to learn that there are fjords in Alaska. Near Seward are the Kenai Fjords, named for the peninsula on which they're found. And just outside of Ketchikan, an excursion in the floatplane takes you to see the Misty Fjords. Fjords are prehistoric relics of glacial activity. They were formed when glaciers gouged out a valley, which at one time was below sea level. Later, when the ice melted, the glacier receded and sea level rose. The valleys were flooded. The lakes which were formed are beautiful, blue, crystal-clear remnants of the Ice Age. The shelf across the mouth of the fjord marks the end moraine of the original glacier. Approaching the sea, The original path of a glacier is marked by a widening valley path. Flying over fjords is only one way to enjoy the spectacular natural beauty of Alaska. There are several ways to experience the grandeur of the glaciers. A helicopter flight allows you to land on the surface of a glacier and learn about the ice formation from a knowledgeable guide. There are trips which combine glacier flight scenes with a fascinating introduction to Alaska's Indian heritage.
Okay, bye. Okay. Ciao.
Or you can combine the cozy comfort of a remote mountain lodge, a roaring fire, fresh grilled salmon, and a glacier view as the scenic backdrop. Portage Glacier provides an informative visitor center and the chance to walk along a glacier's edge. And of course, you can marvel at the beauty of glaciers as you cruise alongside them. Columbia, La Perouse, and Bear glaciers, as well as spectacular Glacier Bay, are visited by ship. 100 miles northwest of Juneau is Glacier Bay National Park. Established in 1925, it has an area of 4,375 square miles. Post-glacial forests have taken root where once there were only rocky moraines. More than 40 glaciers descend from two parallel mountain ranges, St. Elias on the east and Fairweather on the west. Muir Glacier, approximately 2 miles wide, is one of the most active. Because the bay has a fragile ecological balance, no more than 2 ships are ever allowed in at one time. This ruling provides the calm serenity which marks a visit to Glacier Bay. The southeastern part of Glacier Bay is home to spruce and hemlock forests, Alaska brown bears, grizzlies, seals, whales, and is a spawning ground for salmon. The glacier bear, a bluish-gray subspecies, is also found in southern Alaska. Knowing where to find a wildlife viewing area comes from years of patient observation. From the comfort of your cruise ship, from an up-close and personal vantage point, or from cloud-strewn heights, Alaska's glaciers are Ice Age reminders of nature's glory.
Seward is one of the port cities for Anchorage. Founded in 1903, it was named for William H. Seward, who fought public opinion over the purchase of Alaska in 1867. As with many Alaskan cities, you can find evidence of early Russian influence, as well as the native Eskimos and Dena'ina Indians. You'll also see good old pioneer spirit, with a dash of frontier fun thrown in for good measure. Seward is also the hometown of Benny Benson, the schoolboy who designed Alaska's state flag. A large part of Seward's appeal is its scenic surroundings. Its temperate maritime climate makes it ideal for hunting, fishing, and logging. Resurrection Bay, which is rarely blocked by ice, made Seward a successful deepwater port until the devastating earthquake in 1964. Today, tourism joins the fishing and logging industries as the city's economic base. One beautiful stop while visiting Seward is Portage Glacier. It presents an opportunity to see a spectacular example of a glacier at close range. Seward's charming harbor and Gold Rush era buildings hug the shoreline of Resurrection Bay. As you departed, the beauty of the bay provided a scenic bon voyage for the magic of your Alaskan cruise. Fjords are a legacy of glacial movement. When glaciers melt, deep valleys are left behind. Ocean water fills these gorges, creating the spectacular beauty of fjords. College Fjord is unique in the number of glaciers which empty into it. This example of Alaskan wilderness is unforgettably stunning. As you explore the Regal Princess, you quickly discover the grand scale of her design. Centerpiece of your home away from home is the atrium lobby. You were welcomed on board at reception. Across the way is La Patisserie, where espresso, cappuccino, pastries, and desserts provide day-long temptation. Shopping ops from sapphires to souvenirs are found in the atrium, as is the Princess Theater. And on Promenade Deck, the atrium provides a variety of lounges for everything from daytime activities to an evening rendezvous. From coffee at La Patisserie to caviar at Bacchus. From window shopping to people watching, the atrium is the heart of the Regal Princess. As you quickly discovered, there's a very special way of saying, "Welcome aboard the Regal Princess."
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome aboard. I wish you for a very happy cruise and a wonderful time together with us. Thank you.
The splendor of Alaska's scenery is the highlight of a cruise to our 49th state. Glacier Bay National Park was established in 1925. More than 40 glaciers descend from two mountain ranges, St. Elias and Fairweather. Because the bay has such fragile ecological balance, no more than 2 ships are allowed in at one time. This allows all visitors the full pleasure of this natural beauty. The elegant style, fine cuisine, and shipboard fun you experienced on the Regal Princess were seemingly effortless. Behind the scenes, officers and staff work to ensure your comfort, your safety, and the pleasures of your cruise. The bridge is the command center of your ship. Officers have the finest technology available. Coupled with their expertise and experience, you're guaranteed smooth sailing. Officers on the bridge are in contact with the control room to keep the 70,000-ton Regal Princess on course. Her top speed is 22.5 knots, while average cruising speed is 19 knots. From this power center, all systems are monitored and regulated. The temperature of your cabin and the temperature of your caviar are climate controlled. Water purification and worldwide communication are all part of the technological capabilities, and all of this is harnessed to ensure you the most pleasurable cruise possible. Mountains seem to dominate many of Alaska's cities, and Skagway is another settlement nestled in the protective arms of majestic peaks. Skagway's charm is linked to its raucous past. When the original Indian fishing village was overrun with prospectors, idyllic calm gave way to rowdy saloons and lawless abandon. Today you can hear the echoes of those gold rush days in the tinkle of a player piano or the whistle of the White Pass train. Take a carriage ride or stroll along Main Street. With a little imagination, you can transport yourself back to the days of '98. The treasure seekers who came to Skagway had a hard decision. They could try to get to the gold fields via Chilkoot Trail or over the White Pass. The Chilkoot was an easier route, but it took longer. The White Pass was more direct, but the treacherous mountain route claimed hundreds of lives. When the White Pass Railroad was completed, it eased the way over the mountains. But the supply of gold soon dwindled, making the whole enterprise of questionable value. What no one can deny is the beauty of the scenic panoramas that modern travelers enjoy as they follow the route of the White Pass through the mountains. Skagway's history is a colorful one. It's peopled with the likes of the notorious bandit Soapy Smith and brave Molly Walsh, who ran a grub tent for gold-crazed prospectors. The city was founded by William Moore, who foolishly thought he could control the rush of gold seekers and profit from their arrival. The flood of settlers not only overwhelmed his plans, but also added insult to injury by changing the name of the town from Mooresville to Skagway. The name Skagway derives from an Indian word meaning home of the north wind. Residents who brave the location year-round can attest to the accuracy of the name. But in the summer, they welcome visitors to their town to enjoy the flavor of Skagway's raucous past. Visitors can participate in a reenactment of Gold Rush days. Local residents often find themselves living the lifestyles of the past. Homesteaders who don't mind the challenge of the outdoors can live surrounded by the beauty of Alaska's scenery. picturesque charm of this town and countryside are unmatched anywhere in Alaska. Dining on board the Regal Princess is an endless array of mouth-watering cuisine. A small army of chefs is constantly at work to create the fabulous food you can sample from sunup to midnight. Casual fare can be enjoyed at Café del Sol or Bravo Pizzeria. And the award-winning cuisine presented in the Palm Court dining room is nothing short of superb. Hours of preparation go into the Gala Grande buffet. The result is as much a delight to the eyes as to the palate.